Welcome back. The last time I saw you, we talked about the birth, life, and death of a cliche. Today, we will be concluding this three-part series with the step beyond a poetic death. So, get your popcorn ready, strap in, and enjoy the show. Is a cliche bad? Well, no. They're probably not good, but to say they're intrinsically bad would be wrong. Well, then is creating a cliche bad? Well, no, of course not. I mean, most, if not all the time, an author has no reasonable way to predict if they've written a cliche. Again, it's not the author of a cliche that makes it a cliche. It's the people who repeat it. All right, fine. Then is using a cliche wrong? Well, now we're getting somewhere. A writer by the name of George Orwell had some things to say about this. Troubled by the evolution of the English language, he wrote a rather opinionated essay titled Politics and the English Language. After a brief segment detailing what he believes constitutes a cliche, Orwell writes, quote, "There's a huge dump of worn-out metaphors which have lost all evocative power and are merely used because they save people the trouble of inventing phrases for themselves." A writer who stopped to think about what he was saying would be aware of this and would avoid perverting the original phrase. Which is harsh. But he wasn't the only one who thought this way. In a bee colony, there are 3 main types of bees. From building the hive to gathering the nectar, the worker bee does most of the, work. Next, we have male bees, which are known as drones, who are chiefly responsible for reproducing with the queen. And then, of course, there is the queen, whose main role is repopulating the hive. If the queen bee dies, the rest of the hive dies with her. The population dies off, and with no queen to replace them, it is a few short weeks before the hive has collapsed. For the apiarist, or beekeeper, this is a bad thing. If your livelihood depends on bees collecting nectar and making honey, the death of the queen results in the loss of your job as well. So, they have devised a process by which the queen bee is replaced with her daughter before the queen bee dies. This process is known as supersedure. I'm sure the main question on your mind is mainly, what does this have to do with cliches? It's simple, really. At the end of the last episode, I alluded to the fact that death is not where things end for the cliche. Not really. See, language as a set of meaningful words never really dies. Of course, you can still make a word combining the same letters in the right order. So, after death, for cliche, comes supersedure. This process is when a cliche becomes more important as a means of communication than it is as an impactful statement. In this case, it is no longer the very same creature that it started out as. But there is still a queen. You see, linguistics is not just the study of language as a means of communication, but as a reflection of the society it comes from. Linguistics is equal parts reading, writing, and speaking as it is sociology. It makes sense then that the man who wrote the paper that best defines our modern understanding of the cliché is none other than Anton Zieglerveld, a sociologist, and that his paper is named On Cliches, the Supersedure of Meaning by Function in Modernity. Zieglerveld and Orwell agree that cliches are more than their original meaning. They are more than tired phrases that English professors will have you avoid. They are functional cornerstones of our communication. Yes, the impact of a cliche died long ago. But in its place is a new queen. It may no longer turn heads when written in a book, but this majesty fills the place in our communication where we most need it to be. There are the greats, like Shakespeare, who can make up words as he goes along. But not all wordsmiths are as eager to be forging new words as Shakespeare was. Turns out, unless you're the greatest writer of your day or any other, you run the risk of being misconstrued. You lose meaning. And compared to losing impact, that is a heavy price to pay. Ryan Stark, on behalf of the University of Southern California, writes, quote, "The cliché is a seemingly natural villain in written discourse. But what is the rationale behind clichés' devaluation? Many negative attitudes toward cliches stem from this romantic idea of the writer as a genius marked by the production of ingenious images." This article on Zieglerveld's essay refuses the idea that cliches are wrong, instead positing that it is our perspective which makes this union among men seem bad. In another article discussing Zieglerveld's work, Sarah Lawson writes, quote, "If a cliché is simply something with which we are overly familiar, where does it stop? If the truth is familiar, is it cliché? Should we consider cliché then to be all the words and phrases which are in frequent use? Perhaps. But isn't that the beauty of it all? You and I are human. Regardless of your theological persuasion, that is one hell of a coincidence. Just a lucky roll of the die. As humans, we are not faster than the cheetah or stronger than the elephant. We cannot soar into the sky or dive into the deepest depths. But we can communicate. We can bond. We can reason and rise above our situations as mere individuals. We can cry and cheer. We tell stories that are heard across land and time. And yeah, every now and then, we're gonna stumble into some tired ideas. And yeah, we should always innovate to communicate in new ways. But is using cliches wrong? Only if it is wrong to become closer to one another, to dance like no one's watching, to love at first sight, or maybe it's okay to be a little cliche. Thanks for watching. Good night, everyone.